Hi, everybody. Welcome to Women Making Big Sales. This is Melinda Chen. We always talk about sales, and I always talk about the importance of building yourself as a trusted advisor. So when you approach a client, they're going to ask whether you have the expertise to sell to them, to work with them, and you're competing with tons of other competitors. And we all know the first thing you approach them, shortly after the conversation with them, they're going to go online and start checking you out. They're going to Google your name and they're going to try to figure out what you've done and whether your service is going to fit to their needs. And today we're going to talk about social media, or more specifically online marketing, and how you can build your authority figure online and sell to big clients. So today I'm excited to have Marie-Helene with us, and she is the founder of Moon Dust Agency, and she's been in social media, or she's been in marketing for the past 15 years. So she's really seen the beginning 15 years ago when it was mostly advertising and traditional marketing to today's age where everything is online. And she's going to share with us and share with the entrepreneurs about how you can build your online status and position yourself as the authority. So, hi, Marie-Helene, how are you?
Hi, Melinda. I'm fine, thank you. I'm excited to be there.
Wonderful. Well, let's talk about marketing. But before we talk about marketing, can you just share with the audience what you do and what you've been doing so far?
Yes, sure. So as you said, I started working in marketing a little bit over 15 years ago. And back then there was the internet, but there was no social media. So it was still very much a process of using traditional media and stuff like that. And then we started getting websites, but it was still very basic compared to all the resources we have today. And so my role grew and evolved towards digital marketing, which is now what I do full-time with my agency, which is called Moon Dust. We're located in Belgium, but I work with international clients as well.
Yeah.
And so, I've been doing that full-time for several years now, helping brands, but also businesses and even B2B businesses, connecting online with their customers or their clients and creating meaningful relationships with them from the start, or maintaining them once they exist. So that's what we do.
Yeah, well, it's so important because, when it comes to selling to big companies, it's not just you keep calling and keep emailing and keep saying, work with me, work with me. There's a lot of push and pull relationships, and I always call it push and pull. But basically, you're presenting yourself, but at the same time, you need to kind of pull them through content marketing. And that's why content marketing becomes so big. It's because, people need to see your expertise online. But the challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs and small entrepreneurs that I work with or I talk to is that there's so much you could do online. I mean, there's so much in terms of marketing too. And how for small entrepreneurs or even an accountant, lawyer, for somebody who doesn't have a lot of time to build authority presence online, and while at the same time having to deal with, talking to clients and talking to prospective clients. Can you just take us through a step-by-step process?
Yes, of course. Yes, it's true that there are so many possibilities today, and we kind of feel like we need to be everywhere. Yeah. When in reality, it's not really the case. I mean, of course, the more touch points you have, the better. And if you have time to be everywhere, great, do it. But it's not necessary. And I think the first thing you need to figure out is, where is my target market hanging out? Where are they on the internet? Are they looking for products and services on Google? Well, when it's business to business, maybe not. Okay. Are they on Facebook? Yes, probably, because we know that a huge percentage of people is on Facebook nowadays. But when it comes to B2B, for me, I think that the first thing that comes to mind is LinkedIn, obviously. And I have to tell you that when I started my business, the first thing I did in the first few days was set up a website, a very basic one, and optimize my LinkedIn profile. And my first client found me on LinkedIn.
Wow,
this
that's
week.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
on
Yes.
on day two, I think. They found my profile and I was fitting what they needed, and they called me and we started working together, and they've been together with me for 3.5 years now. So, so yes, you have to be strategic. I think a good way of knowing where they are and where you should be. You can of course do some searches by yourself, but you can ask them. If you have existing customers or existing clients, maybe send them a quick survey, or give them a phone call and say, look, what media are you consuming? Where are you consuming content today? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter? Are you on LinkedIn? Do you still do you still read newspapers online maybe, or are you reading particular blogs that are good for your industry? Try to figure out where they are spending their time online.
Well, that is so important, try to figure out where they spend their time. And I mean, LinkedIn, I can go on and on about LinkedIn, and there's, it's such an important topic. But when it comes to once you figure out where they are, how do you define the tone? I mean, do you, for example, LinkedIn, what do you want to focus? What kind of content should they create? Because I noticed that a lot of times people just create a LinkedIn profile and instantly started writing blogs, but nobody listens to them, or they're having trouble getting engagement with their blogs. Can you just share with people, what kind of content do you create, or do you even create content?
Yeah, well, I think the first step in LinkedIn is to have a very optimized profile. And that alone can already help you. And for example, a few elements of a very optimized profile is have a good picture.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be a professional one, but a picture where you are nicely in the frame. We don't see someone that you cut out on the side or something. You're not in a bathing suit or anything like that. Just a good picture, and you can take one with your cell phone, just with the window in front of you, and just take a good selfie. But have a good picture, because that will give it, even if it's not conscious, it gives people confidence and trust in you. So the picture, very easy to improve. And then in your description line, where employees usually put their title, what we want to put there is what we do and for who we do it. Okay, what problem we solve and for whom. Like, for example, on my profile, it says social media and content marketing services for B2B, for startups, and for fast-moving consumer good brands, because that's what I do.
Awesome.
Yeah, because people are going to use the search tool on LinkedIn. If they look for an accountant, they're going to type in accountant. So you want to have that clearly in your. Very often I see entrepreneurs using that line to say that they are the owner of their company. That doesn't bring you any clients, because clients are not looking for owner. They're looking for accountant, lawyer, or IT consultant, whatever. But these are the words you should use. So that's the second element. The third big element in LinkedIn is the summary. Write your story in there, say what you do, for who you do it, and have your contact information there. Have a good phone number, a current email, professional email address that you use, preferably one with your own domain name and not a Hotmail one, because it looks more professional. Have that in your summary, and then the rest, it's interesting if you want LinkedIn to be your resume because you're an employee looking for their next job. But as an entrepreneur, that's not what you are, right?
Yeah.
So use this to communicate what you do and for whom. And then there are nice extensions. You can ask people for recommendations on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Which can serve as a portfolio. Even if you don't have a website, people can see on your LinkedIn profile that some other people have recommended your work. So for me, that's really that's what I would recommend. Before, spending money on a website, if you cannot do that, or before writing any content, get a good LinkedIn profile, really, because that's something you can send to potential clients as well. That's step one.
And that's not even just sending to potential clients. The reality is that most of your clients, the first time you approach them, they are going to check you up on LinkedIn. And so it's so important to have that important presence. So once you have that solid LinkedIn foundation and you've got that presence, is there other ways or other kind of marketing materials that can really further develop that sales relationship?
Yes. So once you know who your audience is, you want to be what I call their servant leader. Okay. You want to be useful to them. Of course, you can be useful by sharing content you produce, but you can also be useful by curating content that has been created by others, but that you find useful and interesting for your audience. If you do so, I see a lot of people doing it. You should add your own opinion to it. So it's very easy to share on LinkedIn a status with a link to an article or a video, for example, but add a few lines that say, I thought this was interesting because, okay? Just don't share a link alone. Add your own value and your own opinion on it. So it's a very easy way to start sharing. And then if you feel comfortable writing or producing your own content, by all means do it, of course. But I think a good ratio is 70% curated content and 30% content created by yourself.
Oh, wow.
Which is great because it means that you do not have to produce a new blog post every day, which business owners have no time for, right?
Exactly. And when you do it for your clients, or when you try to curate or produce content for your clients, where do you get ideas or inspirations? Because I mean, sometimes you sit down and you don't know what to write, or you don't even know where to find information.
True. And I think that we see a lot of content being produced today, but the quality isn't always there, or it's very repetitive or very superficial.
Yeah.
I think a good way of finding ideas first is talk with your clients again. What are their pain points? What is keeping them up at night? And I think in sales, it's very important to know that as well, right? So that's the same question. And if perhaps with a particular question, you had a certain problem and you worked on solving it, this can be a good blog article for you to write, what the problem was and how you solved it.
So it's really using the real example. That would be something.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm constantly trying to find ways to engage with my clients and to get them interested. And content marketing, in a way, there's so much emphasis on content marketing. So, and that becomes in a way the opportunities, but also the challenge. Because so many people are producing the content. But what I find is like at the end, it's got to be somebody producing, really, really speaking to a very target group of people, and really speaking to their mind or the challenges they're having. Do you agree?
I completely agree with that. Yeah. I think you need to know your niche well. You don't need to appeal to everybody, but to your ideal client.
Yeah.
So you should focus on their problem. And I also agree with what you said about having so much content being produced and broadcasted over the internet. I think it's very important, especially when you don't have much time, to focus on quality first and not quantity necessarily. Okay, I think you stand out better with one very good piece of content than with 5 a week that are very generic and say things that everybody has said before, and that doesn't teach anything new to your audience. So focus on quality. Definitely.
I do. I also noticed that I've seen a lot of really, really successful people when they produce content, they don't produce it often, but they really do a very, very good one. And this is something that I often work with my clients is the white paper, and trying to create white paper that address directly to them and simply post that online. So you think for B2B clients, white paper will work really well?
Absolutely. And even beyond that, once you have produced a white paper, which is a little bit of work, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, well, repurpose that. So your white paper could become a series of 3 articles. Or could become a video you make about it, or a presentation that you create and post on SlideShare and repost on LinkedIn. I mean, with just one good idea and one good piece of content, you can create many different pieces for many different places on the internet.
So I'm thinking I'm always, this is going to be the people that are going for business and
Mm-hmm.
B2B clients.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're sitting down, they're writing down all the ideas they have when it comes to producing content. Do you have any tips or any checklist that kind of evaluate which content are more likely to be quality content? Do you have some kind of checklist or do you have some kind of ideas? Like, usually they probably write down a few ideas that they have in mind to connect with potential clients. But how do
Mm-hmm.
you know one would stand out or there's one or two that they should really work on?
Okay, it's hard to know everything
Yeah, yeah.
from when you just start. But what I would do as well to evaluate what kind of idea gets the most interest from my audience, I would use Google. For example, if you type the keywords like the idea that you have in Google, and you can see how many websites talk about the same subject, right?
Hmm.
So you can think that, okay, this idea gets 1 million websites or answers from Google, and this idea get 10 million.
Interesting.
Now you can do a strategic choice. You can say, okay, 10 million. That means that a lot of people are talking about it. This is probably a big problem. True, but you have more competitors then. 1 million, you can say, okay, it's less people, but it's still 1 million people. I don't even need 1 million clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? So maybe there is something that can be added because not everything has been said about that particular problem, and I
Mm-hmm.
will have less competition.
Mm-hmm.
I only just drop an idea if I see, a few thousand
Mm-hmm.
replies. I'm like, okay, maybe not everybody is looking for that because there isn't much content. So that's the first thing you can do. You can go on websites like Quora as
Yeah.
well to see what kind of questions people ask,
Mm-hmm.
and which ones come back over and over. So that will give you an interesting idea as well of, okay, this is content that will interest my audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then quality. The definition of quality, that's a very subjective thing, okay?
Uh-huh.
Obviously, it's not even an amount of words because you can give a lot of value in 500 words and you can write 2,000 words that give no value at all, right?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would think write it or produce it the way you would have a conversation with your clients. Okay, this is the
Mm-hmm.
value I would give in a private conversation.
That's
Now,
awesome.
very
Yeah.
often
Love
people
it.
say, yeah, people will tell you, okay, but if I write everything in the article, then my client doesn't need me anymore because everything is in the article. Well, that's not true because your client hires you for many reasons. Of
Yeah.
course, for your knowledge, but also for the time you make them save, for your experience,
Mm-hmm.
for the fact that you're going to implement the solution much faster than they would do on their own,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if I have to fix, I don't know, something broken in my house, I can watch 5 YouTube videos about how to do it, but it doesn't mean that I can do it well, necessarily, or that I want to do it myself, right? I
Mm-hmm.
would still call the plumber or whomever.
Yeah.
Well, in companies, that's the same thing. They will realize by reading the solution that it's a very complicated thing to do on their own and that they need a professional to implement it. And if they
Mm-hmm.
just read about it in your article, well, you're the first professional they're gonna call because they just have your name and phone and email right there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love this content, this idea, because there are too many times that I just keep listening and listening to the generic information and things that I've heard it all the time. Even myself, I challenge myself, and sometimes it's not easy to say, "Hey, can I say this better? Can I think about it more deeply?"
Yes.
Because the problem is, when you just sometimes, especially I talk a lot about sales, and a lot of times it's the fundamental strategies. Defining your having a clear target market,
Mm-hmm.
know your client's pains. These are fundamental problems, but I always try to understand better, how do I communicate this better and how do I make sure that, it really gives different views and different results. So,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think content marketing is just writing blogs, but I think there's a lot of challenge. You have to challenge yourself, say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you have to write something better than anybody else. You have to write
Yeah.
something that people don't know already.
Mm-hmm. True. And it doesn't mean you need to be a super great writer because
No,
it's not your job, but it's more about what's in there.
your
What
content.
nuggets can they find in there? The value, really.
Yeah.
Besides, it's not just writing. If you feel more comfortable talking, maybe you need to create a podcast. If you
Yeah.
feel more comfortable making PowerPoint presentations, then maybe you should create some on SlideShare that you can share on LinkedIn. You don't have to write necessarily.
And okay, and I want to also talk about whether you can evaluate your content marketing. Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything that what you once you post your content, what are the things that, especially for small entrepreneurs? I mean, big companies always focus on the ROI, return on investment,
Yes.
or talk about shares or conversions and stuff like that. But for small entrepreneurs, is there anything that they should look for, and you would
Yes.
recommend them to pay close attention to?
Yes, definitely. Well, we have to move a step back here because
Okay.
you start creating content.
Yeah.
Normally, you have a reason. You want to achieve something. You have a business objective there,
Yeah.
right? Which could be, for example, generate more leads, have more people, request a call or a short session online, or I want more people to call me to make an appointment, something like that,
Yeah.
right? So if you have decided that this is what your content needs to be achieving for you, then that is what you need to measure, right? You can have a particular piece of content that didn't get many likes or many comments, but that brought 3 new customers to you.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I would say, okay, great, the job is done. Who cares if there are no comments? Comments are nice. Why are comments nice? Because it gives more exposure and you will reach more people. That's why comments are nice. And also because you start creating a connection with more people because you can start a conversation, which is all great. But in the end, if your business goal is to sell more, you need to see that your content is producing more sales. Now, it's not always the case. For some companies, they want more awareness. They just want to make their name more well-known out there. Then they need to measure a different thing. It's not going to be sales. It's going to be percentage of people knowing about them, for example. So you have to be very clear on your business objective first.
Have you noticed that? And I've noticed in my field, and then when I talk to different people, the bigger the clients, the less engagement they show. Have you noticed that? Even though, I mean, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. What I meant is that, sometimes I would give some of the podcasts or some of the content to bigger companies, even though I'm like, hey, the guy didn't even comment or the guy didn't do anything about it. But then afterwards, when I come, talk to him, or, when I have conversation with him, he's like, oh, by the way, on the, the blog you wrote. And I'm like, I wouldn't think that, it didn't seem that that person ever engaged with that and never liked or never commented. Have you ever had that experience that there's a lot of lurkers out there and people shouldn't be discouraged if
True. Well, what we always say on the internet, there's 1% people who are really your ambassadors and they will share your content and they will, root for you. There's then 9% of people who are like commenters once in a while, and then 90% of people are just silent. But yeah, it doesn't mean that they haven't seen you, that they're not interested. They could be, as you said, watching your content, and it will help reinforce them in the idea that you're the right person to solve their problem. But then they grab the phone and they call you, even if they didn't comment on your blog, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's the power of sales and marketing, and the two combined together. Because the marketing is definitely there to build your authority profile,
Exactly.
and show people your expertise, and you don't have to sell as much. It's basically you're building that trust factor. But a lot of people still need that a little bit of push, and then to say, hey, by the way, have you seen my content? What are your thoughts? To kind of remind people that, hey, I'm here, and let's talk about this. And what we talked about or the content is actually important for your business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's even more true in business to business. I mean, it's always people talking to people, but when you're in consumers business, you really want to keep, consumers engaged because there's more competition. It's easier for them to switch to another brand. So that's why probably engagement is much more critical for that type of sales. But in business to business, it's much more, as you said, about building your authority and showing online, giving social proof online that you are competent and you know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. And in sales, there's one thing I find that extremely important when it comes to getting sales is finding out the trigger event and making sure that you're the first supplier or first service provider that they see whenever they have the problem. Because if you're the first one, you're 60% more likely to get the sales. So you've done a lot of research online and you help clients finding online informations and then trying to figure out where they hang out, what kind of content they consume. Do you have any suggestions of, when people want to really find clients and understand their trigger events, what they should do? And, or even, is it even possible? Because in sales, we always talk about the trigger events, what happens, especially LinkedIn. But marketing's perspective, is that even possible? Can you identify the trigger events or?
Yeah, well, I think there are a few things that you can do. And for example, if you're interested in a particular companies, go follow them on their social media.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. That's good. Yeah.
Especially on LinkedIn, usually that's where they would publish press releases and, key events from their company. So that can help you evaluate where they are right now, what's happening for them. It's also good for you because if you get a first contact with the company, you are able to talk about what they've been doing.
Yeah.
Which is very important.
Yeah,
right?
That's very powerful. That's very powerful.
Yeah. So follow them on social media, follow their updates, look for articles on Google as well, see a little bit what they're doing. And you can then identify, okay, maybe they are in a growth phase right now.
Yeah.
Maybe they are, I don't know, refocusing on different products. Maybe they are, I don't know, downsizing. That's sad, but sometimes that's a trigger. Like, for example, this particular company is downsizing in Belgium. I could say, okay, they're going to make a few dozens or hundreds of people redundant. Maybe those people can use a LinkedIn training because they're going to be out looking for a new job, and the company probably has money allocated to help them do that, right? So I could say, okay, this is a trigger event. Maybe I can contact this company and try to sell them this LinkedIn training for redundant people, whatever, just an idea. Maybe that's a good idea. I should explore. I don't know.
No, that is an amazing idea. Those are the things exactly. These are the things that, again, if you're able to understand what triggers events are there. And I always love it when my clients said, hey, it's funny that you're right here. It's a perfect timing. I'm about to just do this. And, it's actually very strategic. And for me, I've been looking for this. I've been looking for people to sign. But it's powerful because if you're there, you're for the first supplier or a first vendor, you're a lot more likely to get a sales. And that takes, you have to really understand, like you said, what is that trigger event? What happens? And so following their social media would be a very, very good tip.
Yes, as well as reading the press, which you can do online, or following blogs about the industry, very good blogs about the industry, because they will give you some kind of insider's view. So yeah, definitely.
Okay. So now as we wind down, because there's tons of things to do and there's tons of things that entrepreneurs can do, let's talk a little bit about time management or how to really get it done in terms of social media side. Yeah. Time management is a challenge for all entrepreneurs. For you as a marketer, I don't think that anybody can spend hours on the internet and trying to look for information, look for the trigger events we just talked about and build authority. What would you say, hey, how do you manage your time not to get distracted as an entrepreneur in terms of marketing perspective?
Yes. I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to social media, we always think that posting an update is just 2 lines. It's going to take 2 minutes. We'll do it whenever we have time, right?
Mm-hmm,
And then we never have time.
Yeah.
A much more efficient way to do it is to work in batches. And that's what I usually do for my own clients. I work in a batch once a month for the whole month.
Oh,
when
wow.
I can do that. Yes. So I would spend like half a day saying, okay, this month, this is the client's calendar of events. They have this and this going on that I need to talk about. They have maybe, I don't know, a promotion about this product or a new launch, whatever. So I need to talk about that. And then what else is going on? And I create my whole content for the whole month.
Wow.
Okay.
And how long would it take? How long would it take for?
Well, I'm very used to doing it, so I can do it really fast. But honestly,
for an entrepreneur, like, are you saying, hey, take a whole Sunday afternoon, get a coffee and write
like
it down, or okay.
Something like that. I worked with a young lady. She was new in a startup, and she had been hired to take care of content and social media. But she was fresh out of uni, very smart lady, but she didn't have the method. And she was spending 3 hours every day looking for content to curate on the internet. And I said, no, you cannot do that. That's way too, you should be using that time for different things. So we used a RSS reader. Google used to have one, but they don't anymore. But a very good one is Feedly. Mm-hmm. You go on Feedly, you create an account, it's free, and you list all the industry blogs that you know in there, right? So every day you get your new fresh batch of updates from all of those websites. So boom, you only have to open one website instead of opening maybe 20 or 30. Everything is in there. So I would create my content calendar for the month. I know that, for example, I have to post 3 times a week for this client. I have filled up half of it with my promotion events and stuff like that, internal content, and I need to fill up the rest with industry content. So I go on my Feedly, I look for what I have, I grab the links, I write the content going with the links I'm going to share, and there my whole month is ready. And then I schedule everything at once for the whole month. Mm-hmm. And then I wouldn't say I don't have anything else to do, because you always have to, go and check and reply to comments if there are any. But the biggest part of the work is done.
Yeah.
And I think you can do that for your business. Perhaps at the beginning it will take you more time, but once you have a good routine, it's half a day of work every month, which is doable, I think.
And what kind of scheduling app do you use?
I've used different ones. I think, and I tend to use ones now that are more expensive, because for me it's my tool, and I use them for my clients as well. So I need to manage a lot of accounts, which isn't necessarily the case for an entrepreneur. Yeah. I would recommend Buffer if you're just getting started, because it's free. It's very easy. Yeah. You can link to your LinkedIn, your Twitter, your Facebook, whatever you have. So that's very easy. Hootsuite is a very popular one as well. Mm-hmm. Personally, I like the layout a little bit less, because it's a little bit more complex, but I mean, it's a very good product in the industry. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to level up and, spend more money, there's Sprout Social. Mm-hmm. Which is quite good. And there's Agora Pulse, which I use myself. Disclaimer, they are a client.
Yeah, you also write for them too, right?
But it's a nice tool. And I think it starts at $29 or $39 or something like that a month. So it's up to you. And, if you just have 1 or 2 social media accounts that you need to post on, a free tool is enough. And if you're using Facebook, maybe not in B2B, but Facebook, you can schedule directly in Facebook. You don't even need a tool to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, there are a lot of tools. And then the content generations, you talked about Feedly, right?
Yeah. That's what I always use.
And any other suggestions? Because I also use Google Alert. That's more for the company news and stuff like that.
Yes, you can set up a few Google Alerts indeed to get some updates on some companies. There's AllTop as well, which is a website that curates content on hundreds of topics from everywhere.
How do you spell that so that everybody gets
It's ALLTOP.
ALLTOP?
Yes, so that's a very good product as well. You can go there for ideas. Yeah, these are my go-to, I think. And then of course, if you tend to follow the big players in your industry on LinkedIn, you will find articles there that they post and that you might want to repost. So that's a good source as well.
Wow. So basically, you're telling the entrepreneurs that a lot of entrepreneurs is basically it could be something that's doable, just half a day.
Definitely, definitely. You just have to be very organized and strategic about it. And once you have your method and you go with it, it's absolutely doable. It doesn't have to be a burden. I mean, you're not a social media manager. You should not be spending all your time on social media management.
Exactly, exactly. And okay, we're kind of like winding down. Do you have some last tips for entrepreneurs who are really trying to build this authority status? And yeah.
Yeah, well, the next step, we talked a lot about LinkedIn and stuff like that. There's other websites where you can go to republish your content, like Medium, which is very good. There's LinkedIn Pulse, where you can republish your content as well. Ideally, as soon as you can, get your own website and have your blog there, because then this is your hub. This is your own digital hub. Remember that as long as you publish content on other platforms, they are all with third party. And if they close down tomorrow, you lost your content. Okay. So get your websites as soon as you can. Get a little help in building it if you need it. Please stay away from platforms like, I'm sorry, but stuff like Wix. It's free and it's easy, but again, it's a platform where if they disappear or if you decide to move to another platform, you cannot even get your content back. You're not the owner of anything. So I recommend using WordPress when you can. When you cannot and you really have to use a platform, I would say Squarespace is a good alternative, but again, it's a third party, so there's always a small risk. And get your content there and drive people there. So that's one important thing. And the second important thing I would like to say is do not forget call to actions.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous. And we think that when we give people a link, they know it's a link and they should click. But if you tell them, click here for more information, many more of them are going to actually click on the link than if you don't say it. So always have a call to action. Tell them that you need them to click. Tell them that you need them to comment. Tell them that you need them to call you or to sign up for a free consultation. Never forget your call to actions. Try to always have one, even if it's a very basic one of click, read the article, and say what you thought in the comments.
Oh, yeah, that's so important. I think call to action and really figure out what you want to do from your client. Do you want your client to instantly buy from you? Do you want them to sign up to the email list, or do you want them to book a strategy session with them, with you? But try to understand what you really want out of these content.
Absolutely.
So, wow, I think if I was a small entrepreneur and just freshly try to tackle this online world, after listening to this, at least I think I'll feel that it's a little bit more manageable. And it's a little bit more possible. But if people still feel intimidated, they still feel like I need help with that. How can they work with you? Can you just leave a message? What you do exactly? Can you share with everybody so that, and how they can reach you?
Sure. Very simple call to action. You go to my website, which is moondustagency.com. Everything is tied together, moondustagency.com. There's a contact form there. The website is both in French and English. I work in French, English, and Dutch, so those three are no issue. And you drop me a message, you send me a question if you have one, and I will tell you very quickly if I see a fit for us to work together if you think you need that. I think probably in 2017, I am going to create some courses and stuff like that for entrepreneurs, because I think there is a gap on the market. There is a lack of good courses and good solution that you can get as an entrepreneur, get the value you need, not spend a huge budget on it, maybe, especially if you're starting. And so, you can go there and contact me, and I'll keep you updated on every possible solution for your problem.
Perfect. And then feel free to let us know, when you have new projects and we want to share this with more entrepreneurs, let them know, because it could be daunting sometimes because there's so much stuff out there and it could be a bit scary and everybody's, talking about different things. So let us know about this course. We'd be very interested in knowing about it. And
Great, sure.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.